Just tell me what do I need to do if I need to do anything different.
Absolutely not. We're actually recording now. Everyone, I just want to say thank you all so much for tuning in yet again. This month's guest, we have Mr. Jasmin Nuhc on. He's an author, he's a coach, he's a trainer, and what I'm loving most is that he's local here to me in Memphis. Jasmin, so thank you so much again for saying yes.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to have that you wanting to have me on your show, and I hope your audience and my audience in this case benefits from our talk today.
I tell you what, like my straight up, like direct intentions for the show is to make sure that we are inspiring leaders to just step up and, and do what it means to be a leader. And so my very first question for you is, why is leadership important to you? Like Jasmin, like why is it important to you?
Well, so that's actually a very pointing and at the same time very broad question, right? So I got to tell you this, my friend. One thing is for sure is the leadership and leaders and people that call themselves leader and believe they're practicing leadership. It's all over the place, right? I have been blessed to work for some of the, I would consider them best leaders that I can think of, that truly empower me, truly show me what leadership means, and truly being a leader in a tough situation as well as in good times, right? And I have had a chance to work for some leaders that I don't know if I would even call them leaders. I think they were in a position of leadership, but I'm not sure they were leaders, right? So for me, leadership is something that I know what is it when I see it. It's hard to describe it, right? But I will tell you in maybe in three things that I'm looking into a leader beyond the integrity, beyond competency. The three things that I'm looking for somebody who consider themselves a leader, and I consider a leader, and that's in my opinion. I hope I'm that kind of leader. Is the one that it has that's able to empower and entrust with full heart and mind of his own to his followers.
Wow, I love that. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Number two is somebody who's willing to recognize that that the leadership is not a position, but it is a earned, and it can get lost. It's not a you have it and you have it for life. And the third thing is, and something that I write my books about, and we are hopefully going to talk more about, is somebody who is interested in developing themselves and developing others, right? So for me, if somebody wants to be a leader in the world or wants to be recognized as a leader in my world, and if I want to recognize myself as a leader, I strongly believe that I have to continue to develop myself. And it's not an or game, it's an and game. I have to develop those around me as well.
Oh my God, Jasmin. Oh my goodness. I wish we would have met a long time ago. So Jasmin, I read that you are a member and a volunteer with the FEMA and the disasters. And I'm like, you have 3 books or 2 books that I know of, the 9 steps of creating your executable individual development plan. It starts and ends with EIDP, and I knew that was your first one, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
That is correct. That is the one that was that's out there. Yep.
So so you obviously you love volunteering. I mean, and people normally do not volunteer unless they have a servant style leadership. And if you also have written these books that will help leaders develop that plan, and not just leaders, but anyone develop a career plan or a development plan for them, like, where is your passion? Like, why are you so passionate about creating or forcing leaders to emerge? Like, where is that passion coming from?
Oh, my friend. So that's hey, I wish I do more. I gotta tell you this. If you don't pay forward, if you don't give back, I would even venture to say, don't even talk to me, right? If you don't feel like you should be giving back, paying forward, if you don't think you should be helping yourself and others develop and be better tomorrow, either as individuals or as a community, that to me is an example of arrogance and self-centeredness
Yeah.
that I'm having a hard time even to connect with those people, right? But I would tell you just on a personal side, right? It is hard to get into, if you never volunteer, if you never give back, if you never pay forward, it is hard. It's hard to find out where you want to go with it. It's hard to find where you think you want to make a first step. And you're even sure if you can do something, right, to actually pay forward and give back. But once you start doing it, once you make it the first step, once you actually do it once, then you're like, there's a self-reward. You talk about passion. It just comes from inside of you. You just cannot wait for another opportunity to do that, right? Now, fortunately or unfortunately, I have had chance to get certified as a CERT, as a community emergency response team member, which is part of FEMA. And I would tell you this, I hope I never, ever, ever have to use that in a real case scenario. But I can tell you I'm as prepared as I can be, because I believe that there's differences, especially when it comes to leadership, differences between being ready and being prepared. And one way to prepare yourself for any leadership role is go volunteer, go into the community, go show you vulnerability, go show that you can lead people that you don't have to pay. They're not there for the money, but they're there for the hearts. Try to continue to win their hearts and minds, so they want to volunteer with you. If you master those areas, leadership at work, it's gonna be easy. It's gonna be a piece of cake. So the more I volunteer, the more I help others develop themselves, the more I'm growing. And I can tell you that's a circle of love, circle of development, circle of empowerment that I just, I can go on and on this one. I'll tell you.
I mean, to be honest with you, like Jasmin, if we could get that style of not just leadership, but just that mindset of an individual, if we can get that more into the corporate world, we will be on a completely different playing field. And I know you strongly believe in creating a development plan, especially career-wise. But like, where's the first steps to that? Because it has to start somewhere. So like, how do you start that foundation of building a career development plan?
Yeah, so there's two elements to this, and I talked about it in both of my books, and I appreciate you actually quoting the title of my books. So the first and foremost, the first step that somebody has to do is they have to make a conscious decision to actually want to have a executable, meaning something you can execute, you can actually make happen, you can actually turn into results. Individual development plan, right? And that's what I call it EIDP. It's that E is a key, executable. But you have to make a decision. You have to make a choice that you want to have it. One thing is keep saying, hey, I need to develop myself. I need somebody's help to help me develop. I know I need to grow. I need to take this class or that class. That's all fine. And I think it's very short-sighted from the view perspective. But hey, probably just like anybody else, if you want to get fit, you got to make the decision and dedicate time and make an effort. If you want to eat healthy, you got to make the decision. You got to make time. You got to make the effort. Heck, even if you want to go on vacation, you have to still make the decision that you want to spend the time, make the decision. So the first and foremost thing, you got to make a decision to do this. And the second thing is you got to take responsibility. Right? Go ahead and understand.
Oh wow!
Did I hit it? Did I do it? Did I do it?
Yes. Oh.
Hey,
with that accountability, responsibility, I got you. I'm listening.
I'll tell you. I'll come in a second about accountability, but I will tell you that's a second thing on the responsibility. I talk to many people, right? Either during my workshops or my talks, or before and after talks, and you have no idea how many times I've been told, "Hey, you know what? Jasmin, I'm working for this guy, and he just doesn't take responsibility for my development." And I'm like, well, look at it in the mirror, buddy. I mean, that's your responsibility. You got to take responsibility. Nobody's going to be invested as much as you should be invested in your career professional development plan. And by the way, it is your responsibility. Managers come and go. They quit. They leave. They do whatever. You own the professional development plan. And making that or come to realization that is true, that is a absolute second pillar that in order, to answer your question, how do you start? The first one, you have to make a conscious decision. The second one is you have to take responsibility for it. Now, Jimmy, let me just add this to you because you brought up accountability, right?
Okay.
And it may come up again, but I will tell you this, once you get started, once again, it's hard, right? Even if you start running, after the first mile, you're going to get exhausted. You go and question yourself, why am I doing this? Why I just don't quit and go home and get a cup of coffee and enjoy my backyard, right? Why? So you need somebody to help you, to hold you accountable, right? To hold you accountable to that decision that you made, that you want to have a professional development plan. And so the reason why I'm saying that is that there's something that I actually picked up from one of my mentors, and she told me this almost 10 years ago. They say, Jasmin, if you want to reach your goals and objectives, you gotta have somebody called accountability body, somebody who's gonna be your friend, accountable friend, who's gonna hold you accountable. And she coined this thing, that accountability body. And then and that once you have that as somebody who's gonna call you out and say, hey, remember Jimmy, you made the decision, remember that, remember, it's your responsibility, don't fall this onto me or anybody else, go make this happen. You can reach your full potential, you can reach your career objectives, but you got to stick with it, you got to stick with your decision. And so while that's not necessarily the first step in order to start working on your professional development, is certainly something that will keep you going.
Okay, so wait a second. So what if I have the consciousness, I have the desire to move forward. I'm taking responsibility for where I am at this exact moment. But what if I'm still having a roadblock because I've built this lifestyle. I'm comfortable in the lifestyle that I've built, and I fear that if I go into a new path that would probably even fulfill me a little bit more, I don't want to let go of the old one. How do you do that?
Yeah. You want to go there, but never leave from here, right?
Exactly. There's a lot of that out there.
Yeah.
I see it every day.
Hey. So I'm gonna take a couple of minutes to actually answer this question, because I've got to tell you a story, right? And it has happened before, right? There's a people out there that find themselves in positions or career paths, and they grind it day in, day out, because they achieve certain level of pay, certain level of comfort, certain level of even reputation within the organization. But they grind it, they hate it. Doesn't provide any passion. It's just not what it works. They don't get energized in the morning before they go to work. They don't feel like I'm gonna go and win today. That's one thing.
Like burnout.
I'm sorry.
Like burnout.
Yeah, almost like a burnout. Yeah. They do that because they have maybe family that needs their support and that kind of stuff, right? And the second thing is, there's also a group of people out there, and this is unfortunate, and I hate to turn this show into this, but I gotta tell you, there's a number of people out there that even compromising their personal values in order to stay in the career paths. They are just not, that just support it doesn't complement their personal values, and they day in, day out compromising that for some sort of a short gain. I would consider a short gain even if it's 10 years from now. And then sooner or later, all these people find themselves in a what they call aha moment, right? They find themselves in a position where they say, okay, I can't do this. I cannot, sacrifice my family, my relationship. I cannot sacrifice my personal belief, my faith, whatever it may be that they're sacrificing. And next thing you know, they make drastic change, right? So the story I was going to tell you is that this is a true story. Actually, it's been published a few times in some case studies when it comes to professional development. But there's a number of people out there that reach even the C-suite level, right? So CEOs, COOs, that kind of stuff. And there's one particular guy. I mean, he was as by traditional means as successful as he can be, right? But his life partner was already fourth one, right? He couldn't keep a relationship going, right? He was constantly on the road, constantly away from the family, constantly, his kids never even got close to reaching their full potential and achieving their objectives, because while he was a CEO, they didn't really get any kind of coaching themselves. They didn't get any guidance. And then ultimately what happened to him, the kids were very much grown, like I say, his family was, I wouldn't say falling apart. They were together, but it's third or fourth version of it. And then in a flight to a business trip, he just had an aha moment, and he pivoted 180 degrees. He didn't even finish the business trip. He just got a first flight, flew back, quit the job, and became a pastor, right? And so.
Wow.
Yeah, and I know I'm purposely bringing an example where it kind of goes completely from one extreme to another.
I was going to say that is a drastic change.
That is, but here's the deal. People wait too long to find out what their passion is, what their personal values are, and they trade that for so long, and maybe they achieve certain lifestyle, like you mentioned, but then they hit a wall. They realize, I can't do this anymore. I cannot sacrifice my personal beliefs, my values for another dollar. So I'm going to make a decision. So in my book, and in the process, if for folks, they may pick up the book and read it,
which one was that? Which
the
book was
first
that?
one, it starts and ends with EIDP, right? On the page, I'm going to quote a page on 28, right? I have a flow chart, right? And then in that flow chart, I try to depict, there's a certain steps that needs to happen, that you want to go from wanting to have a EIDP to actually having it. And one of the main steps, the most important things is do this research, right? Do on the step number 3, make sure you do the research. Make sure you understand the career path you picked for yourself does not compromise your values. It supports your passion. It complements your strengths, so that when you actually wake up in the morning, first of all, you're going to do the best you can be. You're going to grow. You're going to succeed. And in the meantime, you're not going to trade something that's valuable to you. You're not going to trade something that's important to you. And so for that reason, if you have people like that, and when you work with people like that, those are people that are leaders. They may not even have people that report to them. They are leaders. They are happy. Their life is in sync. They are outgoing. They want to win. They're passionate, and those people tend to be a gravitational pulse for a bunch of other people, and then they became natural leaders. And to me, that is definitely a way to succeed in both career and personal life.
Yes, but I am so glad you brought that up. Not even just that example, but I'm so glad you broke it down like that, and being able to transition from where you are now and wanting or having the desire to create a plan to actually creating one. And it's so funny that you brought it up, because I'm kind of living that right now. I've been in the logistics industry for 8 years. And the last couple of years, I've been the brand ambassador for a $1 billion company. And the more that I'm doing for this company, the more I'm starting to realize that this is probably not where I belong. Okay.
Yeah.
And so the reason why I'm bringing this up is because you brought up passion, and not passion, but you have a healthier life, and you typically shine. And so what has occurred to me is my personal life is beautiful. It's amazing. I started my own personal positivity journey a few years ago, and my life just kind of it took off. In my marriage, it took off. My family life, it took off in a positive direction. And so when I was able to kind of dissect what was going on, I discovered that my personality is what got me to where I am professionally. So it's kind of almost like I've been a jack of all trades, and just like our conversation, and just like you're kind of speaking about this interview style and how free-flowing it really is. It's really relaxed, and it's who I am. And so how do you, as a person, as a person that's kind of a jack of all trades, you have an amazing personality, and your personality shines in anything that you do. How can you still be able to recognize that where you are may not necessarily be your highest potential?
Oh yeah. Okay. So let me first tell you one. I'm taking actually notes, man. My friend, it's the fact that you started the positivity journal a couple of years ago, and that changed your life. I'm actually I'm gonna steal that. I'm gonna share with others as well. If that works, man, I want to try it. I want to share with others as well. I'll tell you that much.
Okay.
So I'll make sure that the word goes around, that works. But I would,
And honestly, with the positivity, I don't mean to interrupt, but just really with the
yeah,
positivity, it wasn't more so of a journal. It was more so of a conscious decision that I'm cutting negative things out of my life. And I mean, of course, I can't get rid of everything, like everything negative, but I made a conscious decision to start to be pretty much a little bit more optimistic. And so it
yeah,
kind of relieved a pressure on me. And so I
yeah,
started to see the world drastically differently. Drastically differently. Like I appreciate the rain and what it has done to the heat and what it does to the animals. You know what I mean? And so I'm starting to, and I hate to sound all woo-woo, but I started to see beauty. And I've made a conscious decision to start to actively see the beauty.
that is awesome. That is really,
Yeah.
really. So you're talking about what I was saying earlier in terms of the leadership, and you say if more people leaders did that, their life would be better for everybody in the corporate world. I would tell you this in a personal side: if more people did what you're doing, probably people's personal life would be far better. We will have probably far less road rages on our Highway 240 around town, right? Yeah, no, I'll tell you, yeah, it's like you gotta watch out.
I
Um,
100% agree with you.
yeah,
Hence
but
the reason of this podcast.
yeah. By the way, anybody that listens to this, I love Memphis. If we have your own troubles, but I'll tell you, we also have its own. We have a lot of positive things, and I hope people start seeing more of that positive things versus what some of the negative things.
100%. Yes, I'm in agreement.
Yeah, but on the side, if personal, you mentioned how you really truly capture capture that personality and your strength in order to be able to identify if you're on the right track. Number one, and second thing is that you are not already at your full potential, or that you already reached the level that you probably cannot go any further. Going back to the same flow chart, going back to on the same process steps, I encourage my readers, and I encourage people to listen to and even this conversation, whoever reads it or listens in the future and reads my books in the future, I encourage them, highly, highly encourage them to start with what I call end in mind. There's nothing wrong with dreaming about whatever you want to become, whatever direction you want to go. The only thing is I'm encouraging people, don't think in terms of a title. Right? Don't think about I want to become a CEO. Don't think about I want to become a vice president. Don't think about I want to be like a title wise. Think about in a sense, I want to be a people leader. I want to develop others. I want to develop myself. I want to be the one that people want to follow, right? For example, or I'm going to be a project manager. I'm going to go into the project areas where I want to be, like you say, jack of all trades. I don't want to be, kind of one expert on one thing. I want to be a little bit of an expert in everything. But then also I want to develop in a way that people want to work with me. They want to be part of my project, either the personal side or a social or community or a work. And there's a whole set of people that can go to their career path. And again, the title manager, project manager, program director, VP, all that will come if you indeed find yourself that's a path that your personality, your strengths are most compatible with, and they don't compromise your values. Then the titles will come, the money will come. And the third thing is also I encourage people, and that's something that I'm kind of reading or listening between the lines, if I can say that. Jimmy, as you kind of pivoted a little bit from logistics and became probably a face and voice of another.
Yes.
I gotta, one thing is for sure, like there's a ton of subject, what they call it, SME, individual contributors, right? You don't have to be a people leader, right? You don't have to be a people leader for people to gravitate to you. You don't have to be a project manager to be a manager, right? You can be a subject matter expert. You can be individual contributor for the rest of your life and still make a ton of money, by the way. There's a lot of people, they actually do work as a standalone individual contributors, but they continue to do what they do is the best, right? I had one of my mentors a long time ago, over 20 years ago now. I actually asked that person, I asked him, his name was Clint. I say, Clint, tell me, man, what should I become, right? This is before I knew any better, right? And
Okay.
and he just looked at me straight in the eye. I said, and actually this was in passing, like we were talking, and then he just turned over to me and said, Jasmin, be whatever you want to be, just be the best at it, right? And then I said, like, help me understand it, right? Help me, tell me more, right? He said, man, if you want to just go ahead and, be the best, and here's the example he used. If you want to be a whistler, somebody who whistles for a living, just do that, but make sure you are the best at it, right? And people will throw money at you. They will invite you. They will have you come over because you are the best, right? And I will give you a quick example on that as well. A lot of folks think you have to be a CEO. You have to be a kind of face of the organization, in a sense of, I have to be a CEO, COO, chief financial officer. I have to be on the Bloomberg. I have to be on those channels, right? In order to be a millionaire, to make money, right? To make enough money. That's not true. There's a ton of there's a ton of people that sit in their homes and come up with the designs of different things. And I'm talking about crazy ideas like hey, I'll tell you a quick example. There's a true story. The guy came up with a better way to hook a trailer, right? To actually hook up a trailer to a car, right? And then he patented that, and next thing you know, he was getting $7 for every sale that the company that he licensed to sold it. And he was doing that for 7 years. I mean, he made a ton of money that went directly straight into the bank account that he never had to touch, because he was continuing to do his own work and all that stuff. And just because he had a patent, he had a passion in development. There's a guy that we all know, Google, right? When the Google started, before those two friends started Google, they went to a professor and said, hey, we have this idea, we're trying to solve the problem, but we have a little trouble, can you help us out? What he did, he helped them out. He was a professor at university that they're taking class from him. He helped them out. Next thing you know, Google becomes a company. They give him 1,000, 2,000 shares at the $80, right? Now it's at $800. The guy's like he's got $800 million or something, right? And he's an individual contributor. He continues to ride a bike to his office and teach kids, because that's his passion. He likes to do this, but he's also got a ton of money, right? So you can be individual contributor. You don't have to become a CEO and have a headache of the corporate world and still be rich. So any of those three career paths could make people rich, could make you successful, could make you be whatever you think you can be. But again, it goes back to what you mentioned. You got to find out what your passion is. You got to find out what your voice is, what your values are, and those have to be aligned. Otherwise, sooner or later, once again, you're going to find yourself either burn out, you're going to compromise too much, that to the point that your professional development plan, no matter how good it is, if you're not executing it based on your values, based on what you found out, yes, you will quit. You will suffer, or you get a heart attack because you're wearing yourself out.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness!
Was it?
Do you know what a heart ablation is?
I do know a little bit about it.
I had one of those last year. It's where your heart is off rhythm.
Yep.
So it's kind of firing off all kinds of ways, and it really makes you feel like you're having a heart attack.
Whoa.
And if you don't get it done quickly, or not quickly, but if you don't get it done before you get older, you will be subject to more heart attacks. And so like they have to literally go into the heart, above the top and the bottom, to kind of kill the, I think they're called electrolytes or whatever it is that's firing off. And so when I say this, it's the scariest procedure ever, like it just, you do not want people playing with your heart. Like wake up, people. It is time to just stop stressing and living a path, and what I like to call for the Joneses. Most of us are out trying to please the Joneses, and we don't even realize that they're broke.
And I love the fact that you put that in every single episode. Right? I'm telling you, it's like the first time when I heard it, I thought, okay, it makes sense. It was good, right? Then the second time, I was like, I really think he's actually making this part of his show as part of the talk. And it is indeed the more, like I say, I listen to a number of your shows, and it's there. And it's a great reminder. You're right. And let me tell you, I will go even a step further. Even if they are not broke, even if they're not, let them be who they are and be what you are. And I mean, and same thing is true, by the way. So I'm going to give you a very quick example on talking about professional development, right? You got these peer pressures, right? Even in career. Hey, him and I graduated together. Next thing you know, he's got a title manager. He's a project manager. I'm an engineer. So I don't have a manager. So I'm going to go and start applying for every job that has a manager title in it. And then I'm going to become a manager. Next thing you know, those people get fired because they're incompetent. They can't do the job. or even if they're not, they just go into a role, and just because they're a manager now, they struggle. And good friend of mine, good friend of mine now is good friend of mine, but this was before I actually even know him. The guy was just he got out of school and he was power hungry. He thought he's got to make sure when the next time when they have a class reunion, he's got to be a top, right? He's got to become a director before the next reunion, right? And don't take me wrong, the guy did become a director, but he had a heart attack like in 33 or 34 years old, right? And after I met him after that, right? As a matter of fact, the way I found out he had a heart attack, we had a business lunch, and we were sitting together, and of course I'm eating just whatever, anything, right? I'm not watching in my diet, right? And he's very picky. He's ordering very carefully. He's asking questions, and I'm like, hey buddy, that's like a rocket science for lunch, man. But he said, man, Jasmin, I'll tell you this, I had a heart attack. Doctor told me pretty much if you have one, you're probably gonna have another one. I'm trying to delay. This is a true story. He says, I'm trying to delay it as much as possible. But here's the deal. I actually asked him, how much was that food? And he says, well, probably food was the consequences because I was too focused on my career. I was trying to compete. And he told me the story. He said, I was trying to compete with everyone I graduated with. I was trying to make sure I was the best. I was on the top, and I was. He says, I reached the level of the director first before anybody else. But he also told me, I don't know anybody, by the way, in my class that had a heart attack except me, right? And so, talking about keeping up with Jonas, don't keep up with Jonas with the spending and TVs and the cars and all that stuff. And don't do that from a career perspective either. Do your own thing, be your best what you can be, but make sure, once again, you don't compromise your values. And I suspect we all value health. So don't compromise your health just because you want to become a director. So.
Oh, Jasmin, I feel like we're gonna have to become friends after this.
Actually, once again, obviously you and I never talked before, and I was listening to your show. I was like, that's a lot of power there. It's a lot of raw emotions. But I'll tell you this: you are making this conversation very comfortable for me. In fact, I'm actually sitting very comfortably now. I was a little bit, I had anxiety logging in. Now I'm very comfortable. So I hope, I don't know what part of town you work in, but I would love to have a lunch with you and continue conversation any day.
Yes, but we're going to set that up. I promise you, even if it's just for a quick coffee or tea or something, I promise, we're going to set that up. And I got one main reason, which I want to touch on at the tail end. But I know I was trying to keep you to my 30 minutes, but I want to wind down just a little bit here.
Okay.
And the 9 steps of creating your executable individual development plan. Executable individual development plan. If you had to pick out 1 or 2 main facts that everyone that's reading that book should grasp immediately, the concept of it, what would that 1 or 2 be that you would just really want them to dig in on?
Yeah, so I will tell you, because the first step is the hardest, right? I will tell you again, number one is the number one, and should be number one, right? And I cannot, that's got to happen, right? I will tell you the next one is the research piece, right? So the research piece is both, it can be time consuming, and that's a step number 3. It can be consuming, and it can be challenging. It can take a little bit longer than most people would like to spend time on researching information about different career paths and picking up one of them.
Okay.
And then the third one that I would say, and this is the one that's actually probably the most fun. I think is most fun, and that is what I call it a internal view. Kind of getting to know yourself. Finding out your strengths using the MBTI. So, your listeners and leadership and people that in a leadership position probably have to take the Myers-Briggs type indicator assessments before, or Strengths Finder or DISC. Those are all self-assessments where you kind of walk away with the results of your assessment and kind of finding out who you are and who you are internally, not what you see in a mirror, right? But what I call seeing an internal mirror, things that people don't necessarily see. And I'll tell you, once again, once you start doing those things, those self-assessments, you start telling you a little bit about yourself that you did not probably know. And so I like that step, and I will tell you why the most. I'll tell you that in a second. But that step, like I say, can be very interesting because you're gonna get this type. Like I am INTJ, right? So I'm a generally introvert, right? That's the reason why I write books, right? I don't go to a to a concert. I write a book, right?
Really?
Well, yeah, believe it or not, right? But here's the deal.
Wow.
Once you understand it, right, then you got to kind of study. You kind of get a reflection. Like I realized myself that being in the public, I was always being drained. Like I was always not necessarily guy. I will go to a concert because the friend's gonna go. I'm gonna enjoy it, but it will drain me out. But then I will sit at home, and I wish you can actually see my office right now. I think probably have a, and I'm not joking, I probably have 60 books lined up on the floor, right? I need to lay it up in my library. I'm not joking. I swear I have it right there next to me on the floor because I'm trying to rearrange some part of the office. But I love to read. I like to get the insights of people's into people's heads, and I want to get into my own head, right, into my own heart to understand how I can be better. So there's a lot of internal view that comes out of it. And again, now I come across a lot of time to people as an extrovert and outgoing, right? But that's part of it because I know that I am introvert, so I gotta make an effort to do this, right? And I'm not trying to fake it. I enjoy it. It just that means that by the time I'm done, I'm gonna be exhausted. That's all. Now, here's the deal. Reason why
that's some amazing self-awareness. And
that's
a beautiful
it.
thing.
Bingo, Jimmy. Yeah, man, I need you to be a co-author of my other book. Between your positivity and some of these things that you're complimenting my talks, I'll tell you this: I need you to be co-author of my next book, my friend. But but let me tell you why that is important. So the first two are, I think, straightforward, right? The number one is the number one. The research, you got to do this, and both of those are grinding. First one is a decision. Second one is a grinding work. And the third thing is, like I say, knowing yourself, the internal view, the self-awareness, the emotional intelligence that you discover in that step. What that does is it enables you to accept and deal with feedback.
Oh, wow.
And that is,
wow.
yeah, see, that's a necessary, that you got to be able to do that. Now, when I say feedback, so folks say, well, I don't get feedback. My boss doesn't give me feedback. Trust me, feedback happens all the time. Sometimes it's explicit, sometimes it's implicit, sometimes it's direct, sometimes indirect. But the feedbacks can be literally, hey, Jimmy, this is a great show. You're doing a great job. Pat on the back, awesome. But it can also be, hey, I'm interested to be a guest on podcast, but I'm not contacting Jimmy, right? That's a feedback, right? And so that people need to be able to do that. And the only way to do this is to actually take a moment, take that step,
and have self-awareness.
Self-awareness, and then you be able to accept. Yeah, man. And the feedback is how we grow, right? Without feedback, it's hard to grow. You don't know where you're at, and you don't know where you're going. So I would say, if that answers your question, like top 3 steps out of 9. If I had to pick the 3 that would make the most differences in the shortest amount of time, and if you do nothing different, I will at least do these three steps.
Okay, so I've got to ask this. I did not expect you to bring this up, and this is totally going to push me over time. But I've got to ask. So, have you done a Strength Finder test or
I have
assessment? Have you? Which one is the one that you recommend?
So Strengths Finder is actually so it comes with the book, right? And then
I was trying not to say that because obviously I've done that one, but it can't slip out.
No, that's okay. So so for folks that the leaders, so it just so happened that you picked Strengths Finder. So, but I've been a people leader, right? I've been a people leader at work for over a decade now, right? And before then, I led many projects, but I had indirect leadership across number of people. And by the way, my teams, they spread out between 6-7 countries. Depends on the
okay.
Right? So you're kind of working with a whole lot of different cultures, different organizations, different mindsets, right? But one thing that brings people together more than anything else is when you actually talk about them, right? And then when you actually give them. So every time when I take over a new team, every time when I'm asked to introduce more cohesiveness within the team, the first thing I do, I go buy out a whole bunch of Strengths Finder books and I give it to them. And
Oh my gosh.
part of the reason is, and by the way, I'm not endorsing the book in a sense.
No, I know. I got.
Yeah, I got nothing from it except
Yeah.
that I truly admire the Cliffords and his and Gallup and those guys that put it together. But I will tell you what that does is, in a sense, that the moment you get a Strengths Finder out, then as a leader, it helps to understand obviously your team member strengths, so you can delegate based on strength, not based on the geographical location or proximity to the office, right?
Oh wow.
And people feel empowered. You know, they're actually doing the things that they are good at it, right? And then when they share those strengths, you have a lot of times people say, "Oh, that's why you are the way you are, because you are analytical, right? You know, or you are more focused on connector, right? Oh, that's the reason why every time I talk to you, say, you need to get you introduced. You get introduced to this. Right now, I finally understand because you're a connector. That's your strength, right? And another thing is the book, by the way, just so everybody knows, even if you don't like to read the books, it's a still great book because you only read the first 31.
Yeah, because it's really not a big read. The biggest portion is the breakdown of
that's
all
it.
of the different strengths, you know?
You only read the first 31 pages, and that's it. And then after that, you just read your strengths. And so all together, you're reading about 50, 60 pages, and halas, that's it. There's nothing else.
I promise you, I did not mean to say Strength Finder. I meant to just
no,
ask
that's
you
okay.
for
Nah, but that's the one, unfortunately. So that's also comes in from the, you have to buy the book because it comes with the code and everything else. This, on the other hand, I do have it in my book. I have a link where it's free. There's a number of them that are free. In fact, maybe one of the things I can do is I can email you one of the links that I'd like to use. It's a kind of quick and dirty, but it's still pretty accurate. And free, so that folks can, folks that listen to your show, and particularly this episode, they wanna go ahead and click on it, and then again, I got nothing for it. I just use it. So that would be for the disc. Myers-Briggs is a little bit tougher. A lot of times you have to pay for that stuff if you want a good one. Disc is why you can get a pay version, and the free version that's online. There's not much real differences. I wouldn't spend money on that one. But on the Myers-Briggs, I would, if somebody wants to know what their type indicator is or what type of person they are, I would put, I would pay for it. My suggestion would be to pay for it and do it. But that's not the only one. And I know we're over time, but I'm going to give one more thing on the self-assessments, right?
Okay.
There's a one called 7 Stories self-assessment. And you are the person that you mentioned earlier. You like to write this positive reflections, kind of keep a journal of positive things, right? This is kind of like this. You do 7, let's say, journal entries, for lack of a better term, right? 7 personal stories about 7 different experiences that you have had. And you can pick time frame that you want. It could be a month, could be a year, could be 10 years, 5 years, whatever you want to do. Pick 7 stories, write them down, right? And then after that, you start analyzing, looking at those stories for the common trends. What are the things that made you smile, make you energized, doing those, experiencing those stories? And what are the things that makes you, when you think about them, makes you kind of sad or makes you angry or makes you uncomfortable, right? And it gives you a lot of insights about yourself. What are the things you naturally enjoy and probably want to do more of and should do more of, and that should result in more success versus things you should probably stay away from because they just probably drain you, or that that you would rather not do it even if you're getting paid for it.
Yeah, I like that. Please send me both of those links, and I would definitely not only just link those up in the show notes, but I want to actually probably do a special slideshow or something on my Instagram page of just that specifically. Speaking of this episode, and then being able to help people find their strengths or their weaknesses or their best assessment of themselves. So please, by all means, send me that link.
We'll be happy to. We'll be happy to, my friend.
Yes, but do me one favor, like your website and people getting a hold of you. Please confirm your website for me.
So, the website is actually in the process of being rebuilt, but it's still going to stay the same domain. So it's my first name, my last name .com. So it's jasminnuhc.com. The more articles and all my stuff I try to publish for free as much as I possibly can. The books are actually, I'm not making almost any money on the books because I want to make sure that as many people can put their hands on them as possible. But a LinkedIn profile. So on the LinkedIn, there's a ton of articles, like 20, 30 articles that talk about leadership and talk about professional development. Obviously, all those are for free. I would encourage everyone to go check it out, read it. And I'm available on social media, right? So Facebook, Twitter, please connect with me as well. On the Facebook, it's my Jasmin Nuhc author. On the Twitter, it's Jasmin_Nuhc. And like I say, on the LinkedIn, it's just Jasmin Nuhc. And obviously I'm based out of Memphis, and you will see some of my references on the books. So I will happy to network. I will happy to network with your audience. I will be happy to also, and I'm also connected to the community where people can ask for career advices for free, obviously, and I contribute to that as much as I possibly can. So anybody that feels like, hey, I could use a tip or two on professional development, on career advice, they can send me a request on the LinkedIn. I'll be happy to respond back.
I'm so glad I will be linking all of that up. And this is the main reason why I just had to connect with you. Like, I didn't care about my voice. I didn't care what my schedule was. I was going to clear it because every single freaking email that you sent me at the end, or that signature of yours, was strictly about positivity. So whether I have a positive week or a positive afternoon, when I say that drew me in like crazy, Jasmin. I was like, we have got to connect.
That's a conversation when we're gonna have over the coffee, because
100%
behind it as well.
I love it. Yes, thank you so very much for again agreeing to say yes and providing all of this knowledge. Like, there's so many nuggets in this, and I really cannot say thank you enough.
Hey, Jimmy, I thank you for you and your audience and your show, and thank you for having me. I'm very, very happy that I did it. And again, thank you for making this easier on me, because I gotta tell you this is something that it's a new territory for me, and you made it very easy for me, and I appreciate it very much. So I hope you and your audience have a positive rest of the day and a nice evening.
Thank you. Yes, I will be reaching out for you because we got to do coffee soon.
Oh yeah, more definitely.
All right, man. Enjoy your day.
Later.
Bye.